In the 1990s, Porsche made some big decisions. They moved their glorious 993 911 from air-cooled to water-cooled when they transitioned to the newer 996 model. And purists hated that. Along with the water-cooled engine came the infamous fried egg headlights. But worse was to follow, because by the turn of the century, Porsche then declared they were designing and building their first ever sports utility vehicle, an SUV. Porsche, the brand that was renowned, decades and decades of success in high performance sports cars, were now building an SUV. And there was very good reason for that. Because Porsche as a company, as a business, were financially crippled. And for them to continue to make their luxury high-end sports cars, they had to have a viable product. And it's this, the SUV, that they delivered. And they weren't looking at the history, they were looking forward. Because 20 years ago, in the early 2000s, SUVs were rare. They were rare sights on the road. But now, over the last 20 years, SUVs have gone from being the minority to by far the majority. And this week, we're taking a look at this, the first generation SUV from Porsche, the Porsche Cayenne. Welcome to this week's Fast and Fun video. So this first generation Cayenne, built between 2003 and 2010. In fact, we're only on the third generation now. And they were a real shift for Porsche, but a real saviour for Porsche as well, because they sold in really, really good numbers. V6, V8 petrols, and also a dirty diesel as well. This particular one is a 2006 with only 55,000 miles on, so it's a really low mileage, really nice looking example. And this is the base 3.2 V6, and it's the same engine that was actually from the VAG group. And it was actually my TT, my 3.2 VR6, so it's the narrow-angled VR6 from the VAG group, producing just under 250 brake horsepower. Doesn't seem a very big amount of power for a car that weighs in at, well, over 2.1 metric ton. That seems quite a low value, so we'll see what it feels like on the road. This one, as I say, it's in black. It's got some nice features that we'll talk around, and it has got a big road presence. And this was competing really directly against the German rivals: BMW X5, Mercedes ML, even the Volkswagen Touareg is probably its closest rival. And values of these now have dipped below 5,000. So actually, 5,000 will get you into probably a higher mileaged, well-used Cayenne, but they're down at that sort of value. Right, as always, let me take you around the car. Let's pick out some of the interesting features of this first-gen Cayenne. I don't want to dwell on the fried egg headlights. They've been talked about, as I say, for 25 years on some of the 90s and noughties Porsches, both Boxster, both Cayenne, both 911. They all wore those same headlights, and that's because Porsche wanted to create this symbol, this similarity between all the brands. And actually, maybe 25 years of seeing them, it's just softened. I can remember when I first saw them, they just looked so wrong. But over time, that look has probably just softened. If you look at the front end, I mean, again, that Porsche badge, it's just fabulous. You just know you're buying a premium product when you buy something like a Cayenne. If you look down, just on the bottom, you see a couple of small fog lights, but then you've got underneath the front bumper, underneath that plate, you've got the silver, looks like a sump guard. There's silver splattered all around this car. Don't know if it became a standard or part of the sports pack, I'm not sure, but you can see just above the sill, all around the windows, the B pillar, C pillar, even on the rear tailgate, the small little spoiler there. That silver aluminium look there just lifts it, and it continues around the back of the car as well. Again, bottom of the window strip, and as you step into the boot as well. And plus at the back, they've also got that rear diffuser as well with the quad exhaust. Even though this is only the 3.2 V6 version. Rides on 20-inch alloys, so make no mistake, this is more about sport. This is truly bringing the sort of versatility of having a four-wheel drive car where you sit high, but it's absolutely intent on delivering sports car experience. It's a big car, it's a wide car. It makes my Shogun Sport look terribly small in comparison. If you take it at the back here, again, it's all very understated, just the Cayenne badging there and the black badging of it. Lift up the tailgate to a nice, good sized boot. In there, you've got a spare tyre that's actually missing in this particular example, but all hidden under, and it just looks, everything feels and looks real premium. Again, all these aluminium touches here as you go into the boot, it just lifts the whole experience. The way they've even put the sort of carpeted the inside of the tailgate as well, just really, really nice looking. In regards to the passengers at the back, no problem at all there. That's in my driving position, and I'm over 6 foot. You comfortably get 4 6-foot adults in here. The quality of the leather, I think this maybe feels like synthetic leather, no bad thing either in this day and age. I mean, these rear seats don't look like they've even been sat in. They look day fresh. The carpet, the mats, everything about the car, it looks premium. Even the leather here, it feels quality throughout this car. And then you go to the bits that really matter. Inside, again, so this driver's seat, 55,000 miles of driving. There's a bit of light creasing here on the typical as you get in and out for the driver, but not much. Lovely embossed Porsche logo there. And it's these touches that lift it up. Again, they're going to compete against the big German players here in this SUV market. A dash that's wide with lots of information. You've even got oil temp on there as well as coolant temp, and the rev counter, speedo, battery power's in there. So this one's got an aftermarket infotainment system, probably to be expected. You can't really blame owners for wanting to bring a little bit more easier connectivity. And then this Porsche flap here, it drops down to reveal, again, more buttons all hidden beneath. But Porsche wanted to keep it clean. They wanted it to look nice. All around the Tiptronic gear stick shifter there with the Cayenne in here. Drinks holders, again, you can cover that up. And then I was expecting actually quite a chunky type of a container in here. The top one's shallow, which I expected, but the bottom one, well, it's equally as shallow, which was quite a bit of a surprise, really. But it just feels premium. It feels good quality all around this with regard to the leather, the stitching, and the condition. Bose as well. Bose sound system. And let's have a look at the engine. And again, because Porsche do it right, it's a one-handed activity, this. And there we go. And doesn't that look great? Yes, it is only a plastic covering, I get that, but it's been done in this sort of, to make it simulate aluminium, to make it look like it's metal. 3.2 V6, telling you what it's like. It just stands out. And you can see how narrow angled the V6 is, because it's almost, if I go a bit higher, it's almost an inline six. I think the V is 15 degrees. And you see this with the leads and the plugs, etc. They're almost in line with the slightest angle. And I've also noticed all this zone here at the front. So that engine is actually shoved a long way back from the front of the car as well. So I'm now stood, the camera's stood in line with the front axle, and 4 of the 6 cylinders are probably rearward of that front axle. So it's shoved right the way back. Really nice looking engine. So that's a quick canter around the car. Can't wait to take it out. The weather's sunny, showery, we don't know what we're going to get, so let's hope it stays fine. Let's give this car a drive on some really testing rural roads here to see how good this Cayenne is. So, what a nice place to be. Yeah, it's great. I just love Porsche. I've just looked at the key for the Cayenne, and I don't know how easy you can see that, but it's actually in the shape of a car. So again, it's little touches like that Porsche do. It just makes it nice. So Tiptronic, this, they all were, I think. I don't know if there are any first gen. I'm not sure there were any manuals. There may have been, but there were very, very few if there were any. So start it up. This one only showing 55,000 miles. Just shows you how low mileage this car is, considering it's 16, 17 years old. So super low mileage. And a nice, really big spread and range of dials in front of you, as I say. And it's a nice place to be. And visibility is good. The only thing I have noticed on the visibility is when I look over my right shoulder, the B pillar, it's really thick. It must be, I don't know, 10 inches. So that there is exactly, that's right where my right shoulder is. So that, it's not perfect positioning. I keep looking like that and it gives you a real big blind spot. So I'm not so impressed by the B pillar, but we'll see what it's like out on the road. So let's just stick it into drive. And let's take it on some of these rural roads. Quite heavy steering, as I'm expecting it to be relatively light. Steering is always one of those things that Porsche always do so well. But yeah, much heavier steering than I thought. So let's take it out. Let's see what this great engine, the VR6, but see what it can do in a car that weighs, well, about 2,160 kilograms. We're just sat at 30 here. Very quiet, very refined. We're just going to come out into a national speed limit here shortly. So pulling about 1,800 RPM, 30 miles an hour. Get to the national speed limit. We'll just stretch its legs then. So we'll jump down so it kicks down. Yeah, it kicks down. And then just pulls, and then 60. Official time is about 9.5 seconds to 60. And for as much as I really love the 3.2 VR6 engine that's in this, the VAG engine, it's very muted in this. You can't really hear it at all. Even then on kick down, you hear very little, which is a shame, because actually that VR6 engine's a really nice, sweet sounding engine. .60 miles an hour now, just over 2,000 RPM. quite a bit of wind noise, but again, it's a big lump, and it's not so much in length, but when I looked at the width of this against something like my Shogun Sport, it's just such a wide car. And I noticed when I'm driving it, it's a really wide car on the road. You've got to be cognizant of that when you're on this car. Just slowing down here as we go to this village. Brakes, I've yet to be in a Porsche that's not delivered brilliant braking. Yeah, I mean, this is a big, heavy car, but it masked that weight really, really well under braking. So the four-wheel drive system on the Cayennes, rear-wheel drive biased, so it's 62 rear, 38 front. So rear-wheel drive bias. Not that I think that means much to most driving. It's probably just more important on the spec sheet, to tell you the truth, just to try to keep the purity of rear-wheel drive, or certainly the bias being rear-wheel drive. This one also rides on traditional springs and dampers, so air suspension was an option, but to tell you the truth, air suspension, hydraulic suspension, all those fancy flat levelling, self-levelling suspension systems from the 2000s, if my experience is anything to go by, they are best avoided. All the cabin area, the fence, everything about it, the door cards, everything does feel premium though. It does feel nice. The sort of the stitching, and just where the stitching, it's all bang accurate, it's all bang in a straight line, it all looks premium, and I like that. And I, for one, from inside the car, like the look of it. Down one of my favourite country lanes down here, and it's a really good road to take something like this, because it'll just test the ride quality, the chassis, the suspension. It's really badly potholed. Just there, the gearbox just actually dropped there when I wasn't expecting it to, quite annoyingly. Yeah, just then the gearbox sort of stayed in second gear when I was expecting it to go into third gear, so I'm not sure why. It's still in drive, so I've not moved it up manually, because you can use the manual Tiptronic shifters on the steering wheel. So we're just going along here at just under 30 miles an hour. There's a few squeaks and rattles on this particular road. On the main B road back there, it was very, very quiet. But it's not bad at all. Seems like it's really well damped. Being 20-inch alloys, you're always a bit unsure whether it's going to be a little bit too sporty for an SUV, but no. And it's almost silent. In fact, it almost feels akin to an electric car. It's so quiet at low revs. 35 miles an hour here, ticking 1500 RPM, and you can't hear the engine at all. It is uber quiet. I'm not a great lover of the steering, actually. It's very heavy at slow speeds, and then as you pick up speed it becomes lighter and lighter and lighter, and then almost, for me, almost overly light, really too sensitive, so almost like it feels a little bit edgy when you start picking the speed up. Again, the engine, very muted sound deadening probably. And then the only problem is when you've just gone up that little rise there, the Tiptronic drops it down a gear, and it just sounds like the engine's having to work that much harder just to maintain pace. And I don't think it's necessarily the engine, it's more the Tiptronic gearbox keeps dropping down or dropping up, not when I'm expecting it would do, just because it's not that intuitive. Let's just try it coming out of this junction. better then because the Tiptronic's already in the right gear, so it's building up to 5,000, 6,000, then it's up shifting, and now we're at 60. And that's pretty good for to over 2 metric ton vehicle. I don't think that's bad. This is a bumpy, snarly little road, this actually, and you can get up to speed though, and you just sort of really test out the steering, the chassis, and how well it can cope, and the damping's pretty good, and you're sort of moving along here much faster than you ever thought you could do. You just got to be quite wary, or just then that compression just lost a little bit of composure. Then it does struggle. It does struggle at times, just with that road holding. Come out of this junction. Got a couple of little bends here, downhill, so you're on the brakes into the corner and then dropping down the steep hill to this left-hander, tightens up a little bit of weight. Just feel the brakes just grabbing a bit there, and then back it out, and because it's downhill, gathers speed quite quickly. Just the brakes, just felt them. I don't know if that was the ABS, just a bit damp there as well. So how do I summarise my day with the Porsche Cayenne? Well, a lot depends, I think, on your perception before you drive the car. If you've gone into this wanting a Porsche but on steroids, and it's a pure sports car just pumped up everywhere, you're going to be disappointed. It's not quick, the gearbox is awkward, and the driving experience will just be a letdown. But if you go in there wanting an SUV, wanting a well-built premium SUV that can drive at 3-4 tenths in refinement, quiet, looks good, and has got a prestigious badge on the front, then it could be a savvy buy. I mean, these 5k will get you into a Cayenne. That seems incredible value. Do I miss not trying a V8 or a turbo? Not necessarily. I think for what this car it will be used for 99% of the time, this 3.2 V6 is good enough. And it's only really when you start pushing on at 7, 8 or even 9 tenths do the failings with the car just become more evident. And it's not the engine, it's most of the gearbox. It's that Tiptronic gearbox. It's just, it makes it really awkward. It shows the frailties with that gearbox, that in other cars, things like my Boxster, the engine was so good in that it sort of we drove around that. It masked those frailties. Here, when you're going through the corners, the switchbacks, it just doesn't know what gear. When it does, it takes too long to work it out. But for 5k for a Cayenne, you can't knock it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please thumbs up, subscribe below, stay tuned, another video next week. Thanks for watching.